Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the 10th webinar of our knowledge building series on reclaiming adl and ihsan in Muslim marriages between ethics and law. Thank you for joining us from different parts of the world. We're really grateful for your engaging presence. This is what enriches and stimulates our conversation. So thank you for being there, and really we appreciate your questions and reflections and feedback. My name is Sarah Marceau, and I'm the coordinator of Musawah's Knowledge Building Working Group, and I will be the housekeeper for today's event. The previous webinars looked at Muslim family relations from a fiqh, historical, legal, and Quranic perspective. Our last webinar featured the groundbreaking work of Dr. Sara Abebni and Dr. Shadab Rahmatullah on the marriage of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ with Khadija, in which they questioned hegemonic narratives on Muslim ideal marriages. If you missed these webinars or the previous ones, you can watch all of the recordings in Musawah's YouTube channel. Today, we have the blessing and privilege to have with us Dr. Nur Rofiah to explore the Quranic ethical trajectory towards social justice. She will introduce us to her tafsir methodology, a tafsir of praxis that starts from the context and speaks to women lived experiences. We're very grateful to have Nur with us in this research initiative. Her contribution is joining the 4 other scholars of Qur'an, Amira Abu Talib, Asma Mrabet, Umayma Abu Bakr, and Mulki al-Sharmani, who are all proposing to reimagine Muslim norms and gender and family relations through innovative interpretive approaches to the Qur'an, and one that are grounded in Quranic ethics of equality and justice. And I have to say that in Musawah, we have a lot of respect and admiration for the creativity and the strength of the Indonesian movement for gender justice. Dr. Nur and her colleagues have created spaces and mechanisms that include Muslim women scholars in the production of religious knowledge, and this has been a great inspiration for Musawah. And I'm sure that all of you, our participants, are looking forward to hearing more about that today. Before I hand over to Rosanna Isa, who will be the moderator for today's session, I have a few housekeeping items to share with you. This webinar is also being live streamed via our Facebook page, and it will be available on our YouTube channel. Participants who are joining us on Zoom, you will be able to ask questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. If we don't get to your question during today's webinar, please don't hesitate to get in touch via the email that is now shared on the screen. Please use the chat function if you are experiencing any technical difficulties, and I will be happy to assist you. In the chat box, I will also be sharing resources and any reference material that the speakers speak to. If you are tweeting or posting about the webinar, please don't hesitate to tag us at Musawah on Twitter and at Musawah Movement on Facebook and Instagram. Now, let me introduce you to our great moderator, Ms. Rosanna Isa, a dear colleague, teacher, and friend. Rosanna is currently the Executive Director for Sisters in Islam, a Malaysian NGO working on women's rights within the framework of Islam. For those who don't know, Sisters in Islam is Musawah's mother, and the reason behind all of this. Rosanna joined the Malaysian women's rights movement in 1999 in an effort to address violence against women. Before taking up the helm of Sisters in Islam, she worked with a number of national, regional, and international women's rights organizations. And the most important thing, Rosanna is also a board member of Musawah, and she's been Musawah's Secretariat Coordinator from 2009 to 2017. So we are very privileged to have her with us today to moderate this discussion. Thank you. And now I'm going to hand over the webinar to you, Rosanna Jan.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for your kind introduction. And thank you also to Musawah for inviting me to moderate the session for today. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Just checking in. All right. So, Assalamu alaikum and welcome everyone to this exciting webinar titled Approaching Quran Through Women's Experiences. I've been with Sisters in Islam for 20 years, and the subject of the Quran, how we read it and interpret it, is one that I feel personally relevant and challenging as a Muslim woman and an activist doing the work that we do at Sisters in Islam, primarily because while I and most of us can read the Quran in Arabic, however, I do not have knowledge of Arabic as a language that I understand and communicate in. And yet the Quran is not only it's not only a very important reference as a book of guidance personally, But it is also a primary source of reference here in Malaysia in terms of engagement with both authorities as well as the public on issues of Islam and women's rights, as well as other fundamental liberties issues. We are often struggling with how the Quranic verses are used by our detractors in ways that just doesn't uphold the values of equality and justice that we believe Islam to be. The issue of polygamy, for instance, I mean, this is a core issue that Sisters in Islam has been dealing with for a very long time, and is one that I just cannot fathom as to how men just do not see and do not want to see how the Quran is very explicit in telling men that you cannot do justice. You cannot do justice in polygamy, even if that is what you want to do most. So the biggest question here really is, how are they reading the Quran? How are men reading the Quran, and how are women reading the Quran? Is there a difference? And if so, what is it? Is there something that can be done about this very important text before all of us? Because the influence of the Quran, even when it's not read in Arabic, is tremendous. And for us working to address issues of women's inequalities, not only in laws and policies, but also our day-to-day lives as women in private domains and public spheres, what approach do we need to take so that we can be heard in the way that the Quranic texts come across to us so clearly, but that men and maybe even other women just do not see? And so I'm very happy to be a part of this webinar for all of us to hear from Dr. Nur from Indonesia. Dr. Nur Rofiah is a lecturer of methodology of Quranic interpretation at the graduate and postgraduate levels at the Islamic State University Sharif Hidayatullah and at the Institute for Quranic Studies in Jakarta. She is also a women's rights activist who promotes gender justice within Islam as a writer, facilitator, and resource person. She has authored books in Indonesian, whose titles translate in English as Breaking the Silence, Religion Hears the Voices of Women Victims of Violence, and Islam as Human Religion, Reinterpreting Qisas and Hudud. She is a board member of Alimat and Rahima, two of the three institutions that initiated and arranged the first Congress of Indonesian Women Ulama in 2017. Now, I came to know Dr. Nur in 2008, when another colleague from Sisters in Islam, Yati Kaprawi, and I were sent off to Cipasong near Tasikmalaya in Indonesia for almost a week long with a group of Ayatullahs from Iran, where it was a study tour for them to learn about and get to know the ways of learning Islamic studies amongst young students in the Pesantren. And Dr. Zibar Mir Husseini was there as well, who played a major role in bridging the understanding on how the Indonesians are learning about and living Islam to the Ayatollahs from home. And since then, we have been working very closely together and bringing in Dr. Nur, someone who works with the tafsir of the Quran, bringing her into the grassroots women's spaces, as well as the platforms on youth engagement and young religious leaders' capacity building. And we just love what she brings to all of us in terms of the clarity and conviction and the ways that she unpacks her understanding of the text in relation to the issues that we deal with on the ground. And of course, she is also one of the key figures when Musawah was developing and growing before and after the launch of the Musawah Global Meeting 12 years ago. And so, yes, we had just passed the 12th anniversary of Musawah, everyone. Very exciting. Congratulations, Musawah. Happy birthday. And so it's great to have her here as part of this initiative that Musawah is doing on reclaiming adil and ihsan in Muslim marriages between ethics and law. Now, the objectives of this webinar is, of course, related to that initiative. In particular, firstly, to introduce a new Quranic perspective on marriage, foregrounding substantive justice and women experiences. Secondly, to highlight Muslim women scholars' innovative interpretive approaches to the Quran. And thirdly, what are the lessons that we can learn from the successful marrying of the production of Islamic feminist knowledge and gender-sensitive activism in the Indonesian context? Now, after Dr. Nur's presentation, we'll be hearing also from our discussants for this webinar this evening. And I'm very happy to introduce to you to Dr. Nur Jihan Safia Nias. Dr. Nur Jihan is the co-founder of Bharatiya Muslim Mahila Andolan, BMMA, a movement of Muslim women in India that has worked consistently in the areas of Muslim family law reform, education, health, security, and livelihood by encouraging and facilitating the leadership of Muslim women. Dr. Nur Jihan has a PhD from Yashwantrao Shavan Maharashtra Open University. And the work that Dr. Nurjihan has been doing throughout these years with BMMA is totally groundbreaking in so many ways and on so many issues, from the Nikah Nama and establishing the all-women Qazi courts to the campaign on the triple talaq in India. So I better not say too much, and I hope for sure that she'll be speaking on some of these issues that I've touched on. But I hope that by the end of her discussion, we will all see how the works of these two amazing women is so important for all of us to hear from and to take inspiration from them. So without further ado, we will now begin the session. And so let's start our session with Dr. Nur Rofiah. Dr. Nur, can you please tell us, how did you come into this field and the work that you are doing on tafsir of the Quran? Can you share with us the organizations and movements in Indonesia that you have been a part of, and how you have been both impacted by their work and how you are impacting on theirs? And what are some of the new ways of thinking on this area of knowledge that you have created and co-created with them? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Razana. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, everyone. I think I need to start from my life journey, Roro. As a female scholar and activist. I started to learn Islamic knowledges intensively when I live in a pesantren. You mentioned that. It is a classical Islamic boarding school for about 6 years as the student of junior and senior high school. But it was only from the conventional perspective, which was genderless, of course. Then I went to Islamic University to do my undergraduate program in Tafsir and Hadith, and started to know gender issues through Amina, Rifat Hassan, Nawal, and Sisters in Islam books. Here I began to question the gender-biased Quranic interpretation. Then I went to Turkey to do my master and PhD degree in tafsir. I started to discuss deeply about Quran and gender issues when I work as a lecturer of tafsir and at the same time as a woman activist. I teach tafsir at the Institute of Quranic Studies, which is known as male-dominated university. All undergraduate students here are memorizing Quran, and most students of master and PhD degree are male religious leaders. So I used to discuss about Quran and gender with male religious leaders in the classroom. And I'm a single female in there. At the same time, I have been engaged with some Muslim NGOs like Rahima that provides 1 year training for women ulama that bring together with women activists, strengthening them with tool of social analysis, gender analysis, and the methodology of Islamic studies from gender justice perspective. And also in Alimat that promote gender equality and justice within Indonesian family. Alimat is the network of Musawah. In Indonesia, Razana, the discussion on Islam and gender began since 1990s and bring about many male and female scholars and religious leaders who believe and apply gender justice perspective to Islamic discourses. And in 2017, we organized the first Indonesian Women Ulama Congress, or we call it KUPI, Congress Ulama Perempuan Indonesia. There are two similar terms that are important. One is perempuan ulama, which means women who has ulama capacity, and ulama perempuan, which are ulama who has women's perspective. And KUPI is the Congress of ulama who has women's perspective. So they could be male and female. After the Congress, I'm disseminating the approach to Qur'an through women's experiences by creating public forum. It is an open forum online called Ngaji KGI, or Learning Forum for Gender Justice in Islam. And now, Rozana, it is more than 2,000 male and female participants registered. But sometimes it's only 300 until 500 participants join the forum, but it's okay. I think that is my short journey.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nur. We're going to get back. You're kind of like mentioning these amazing numbers, but very modestly. And I've had experience in those forums, so we will be talking about it a little bit later. It's really something, really exciting. So I want to say that, I mean, given this aspect of you as a scholar and also as an activist, and the different insights that you have by being in both these arenas, you know, you have developed a new methodology of interpreting the Quran, right? Yes. And so back to the earlier questions that I had in the beginning on how women and men are reading the Quran differently. I mean, what are the gaps between the methodologies that have been used all this while? And how is your methodology? I mean, what is your methodology and how is it addressing that gap? Can you please share with us?
Yes, I think the big gap or the big problem of the knowledge system, including the Islamic knowledge system, is both conventional and also modern approach to the Quran, is that women's experiences have been silenced. It causes big problem for women because the concept of justice or maslaha based on Quranic interpretation is often not valid for women. Maybe it may maslaha or just to men, but not for women. Meanwhile, we believe that the justice and maslaha of Islam is for both men and women. So I propose an approach to the Quran by taking women's experiences into account, and women at least have two kind of experiences that men don't have at all. First is women's bodily experiences. I think next slide, please. Women's bodily experiences such as menstruation, pregnancy, baby delivery, nifas, and breastfeeding. The Quran values them, these experiences, as painful or other, tiring or kurhan, and even multiple painful and tiring or wahnan ala wahnin experiences. So you cannot say something is just or maslaha if it adds or multiplies the pain of women's bodily experiences. And the second experiences is women's social experiences, such as stigmatization, subordination, marginalization, violence, and double burden just because of being woman. They are unjust, and you cannot say something is just or maslaha if it contains one or more of these gender-based injustice to women. This approach is very important to be applied to both realities and Quran. Through this lens, this approach, we identify three types of social system that reflecting three levels of consciousness of women's humanity. First is hard patriarchy and the lowest consciousness of women's humanity. In this system or level, people believe that men are human while women are not. Men are the subject and the ruler of the life, while women are the object. Men can do anything to women as the owner of property. In this level, the mission of Islam to bring blessing or rahmat to universe and to complete a human's noble attitude is nothing to do with women in this level and system. Women experiences become a reason to exclude them from humanity. Doing bad things or mafsadat, even danger, madarat, to woman is not against Islam according to this social system. And the second level or system is soft patriarchy and the middle consciousness of women's humanity. People here believe that women are human, but men are the standard of their humanity. Men are the primary subject and ruler, while women are the secondary ones. If something is just and maslaha for and according to men, then it must be so for women. In fact, it is not always because of women's experiences that are different from men, and the experience of men to have second or third or fourth wife as husband, of course, are extremely different from the experience of his wife. So in this system, women experiences are seen as an exception from humanity. Doing bad thing, mafsadat, or even danger related to women's experiences is not considered as against Islam according to the system. And the last system, the third system, is gender justice and the highest consciousness of women's humanity. People in this system believe that both men and women are human, both are the primary subject and ruler of life. Justice and maslaha is something that is just and maslaha for both men and women, including for women's experiences. You cannot say that something is just or maslaha if it is adds pain to women's bodily experiences or causes any gender-based injustice to women because of their being women. In this system or level, people try their best to create the comfortability of women to have their bodily experiences and to protect women from any gender injustice. I think that that was the brief picture of the methodology that I propose in approaching the Quran, Rozana.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Nur. I mean, as it is, when we learn something in theory, we really want to see how that can be applied. Yes, so can you please, share with us, some very specific examples of how this methodology can be applied in some of the issues that we deal with as women and activists in the areas of marriage, for example?
Okay, so of course, we have a new paradigm of Al-Quran before applying that methodology. We believe that Al-Quran's mission is to bring blessing or rahmat to the universe, including to women. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. And to complete the noble attitude of humans, including their attitude to women. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. The Quran is the direction to humanize women from zero to full human. The Quran recorded the long process during 23 years of revelation, and we need to continue this process until the end of the time. Based on this, Rozana, we identified 3 types of Quranic verses. First is verses of starting point. They are verses that give a picture of the context of revelation, and these verses are indicated by assumption or putting woman as an object of life. For example, verses on virgins of paradise, or verses on women as accessories of men's life. Zuyina linnasi hubbus syahawati minan nisa. And also wife as fields of husband. Nisaukum harthul lakum. But we need to remember that these verses are starting point verses. The ideas inside the verses were going to be changed during the revelation. And the second verses is verses of intermediate step. They are verses that call for reform of practices within the context of revelation. And they are indicated by putting woman, so there is assumption behind the verses that women are half or 1/3 or quarter of men, like verses on polygamy, or verses on women's portion of inheritance and women's witnesses, for example. But we need to remember that this kind of verses are only the intermediate step of the long process in humanizing women. So we need to hold tightly the third verses. It is the verses of end goal. There are verses that speak to all contexts, beyond times and spaces, towards equality and justice for all, that indicated by putting women and men as equal human. Like verses At-Taubah 9:71, the believers, men and women, are protectors one of another. وَالْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتُ بَعْضُهُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ بَعْضٍ. Or verses, or verse of Al-Hujurat 49:13 that said, surely the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous among you. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. And also first An-Nisa 4:3 that said about monogamy. But if you fear that you will not be just, then marry only one. This part is not popular as the other parts. Yeah. In fact, this first and the polygamy one is at the same verse. So one verse. But the part of polygamy is so much popular and this part is not popular. Let's go to the verses on marriage. The next slide, please. We realized that Arab society during the time of Quranic revelation was like any hard patriarchal society anywhere and anytime, that put women as an object of life and owned by men during their life. Women were owned by their father, husband, and sons, and or any other male relative. Marriage was seen as a social contract that changed the ownership of a woman from their fathers to their future husband, with something as dowry. Let's look at how Quran changed the paradigm of marriage and the position of woman and the position of woman as wife through these verses. Arum, Arum 21. And it is among God's sign that God created for you partners that you might find tranquility in them, and God has created love and kindness between you. There are three changes that is we can identify from these verses. In the past time, husband was the owner of wife. But when Qur'an said azwaja, partner, it is changed very much the relation between husband and wife from the owner and property to the partner, equal partner. And also in this verse, show us the change of the objective of marriage. It was the sexual and the husband's sexual pleasure. And this verse taught us that the objective of marriage is husband and wife, peace of soul, or sakina, tranquility. So both tranquility is the objective of the marriage. And also the relation between husband and wife, it was based on the ownership and power of husband over wife. But in these verses, Allah guide us the different relation, the different foundation of the relation between husband and wife. They are kindness and love. Mawaddah wa rahmah. It is not the ownership and power anymore. And also in the next slide, we have other verses related to marriage too. They change very much the concept of marriage. This verse said that that marriage is a solemn covenant. This first change the concept of marriage in the past, that marriage is it is not a solemn covenant. It is a contract of the ownership of a woman. And then in the next slide, also we have a foundation of marriage that so in past, the husband as the owner of wife could do anything he wants. But in these verses, there is a moral foundation that husband have to treat wife in kindness, or mu'asharah bil ma'ruf. Husband and wife need to treat each other in kindness. So there is no violence here. And then the other moral foundation of Qur'an related to marriage is that marriage need to, so in the past, husband is the only decision maker because he is the owner. But Al-Quran said that husband and wife both should discuss or musyawarah in solving any problem of marriage. And also in the past, wife must have husband consent in everything, and husband doesn't need wife consent in anything. But Al-Quran said both husband and wife need their spouse's consent, tarodin. So this is the I think I said that this is the revolutionary values of marriage that Islam bring. Of course, we need to struggle very much to change the existing marriage system into the highest level of marriage that Quran want us to have. And it is not only the challenge is not only how to deal with other verses that may textually has different messages, and we need to understand that kind of verses as starting point verses or intermediate step verses. But most of us tends to understand the intermediate step verses as the end goal of Quran. This is the problem. And the other challenge, of course, the patriarchy, hard and soft ones, is anywhere and anytime. So the biased gender interpretation of Quran more fit to the patriarchal system of society. We need to struggle very much on this.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Nur. I mean, that was really a very enlightening explanation. And I'm especially taken in terms of the whole idea of, we do know about the Quran's trajectory to social justice, you know, in our learning of the issue of slavery, especially. This is something that has always been given as an example. I think the other example that has been given is also in relation to polygamy, but we've always struggled in relation to how this trajectory can be applied in terms of our situations as women, and how do we get to be regarded as equals to men, equal to men. And because the Quran, of course, is not, you know, put together in a chronological order, so it's really wonderful that you've been able, that you've shown us, you know, like, you know, what is the starting point, what is the intermediate step, and what is the end goal. And I think for a lot of our discussions throughout the years on the Quran and the positions and the roles of women, you are right, we are always stuck, you know, looking at the intermediate steps as being the one that the Quran says it's fixed. So thank you so much for, you know, explaining this to us. And it's definitely a framework that we can work with and apply. So yes, so I mean, you've really given us some very concrete examples in terms of how you've been able to apply this methodology and approach with regards to dealing with the text in relation to the issues of marriage. But how does this also make a difference that go beyond the interpretation of the text? So if you can share with us, you know, the impact that this approach have made on laws or policies, and also to the society on the ground, please.
Yes, Razana, I think the big and the most important impact of this approach is the change of the way we elevate the standard of human rights, the standard of maslaha in Islam, and the standard of justice, which becomes meaningless without bringing in the approach of women's substantive justice. We need to think about the sameness of men and women as human, but at the same time, we also need to pay certain attention to the difference of them as human. The sameness and the difference both are important between men and women in defining justice, defining maslaha, and etc. Another impact is the fatwa of KUPI, or Indonesian Women's Ulama Congress, on child marriage, for example. Marriage has to give maslaha, has to give justice for both men and women. This is the important principle. And child marriage can bring girls to have pregnancy, to deliver baby, nifas and breastfeed in the very young age, and it is dangerous for girls, even when boys don't have this experience. But still, child marriage is dangerous. So the fatwa said that to prevent children, boys and girls, especially girls, from any dangerous marriage, in order to create maslaha within the harmonious or sakina family, is wajib. Wajib, yeah. And then the other fatwa is about sexual violence. Of course, the experience of men as perpetrator are different from women as the victim of sexual violence. And still, it is dangerous to women. So the fatwa is, and the fatwa on this said that to commit sexual violence, both inside and outside marriage, is haram. So husband cannot commit sexual violence to his wife, because marriage in Islam allow men and women to have sexual intercourse, but still prohibit the dangerous ways of having sexual intercourse. And the third fatwa is about nature, because the destruction of nature gives very bad and even dangerous impact to women because of the certain bodily experiences. And of course, it is also dangerous to all people. So the fatwa said that to destroy nature in any name, including development, is haram. And the next impact of the fatwa on child marriage. So the fatwa on child marriage by Kupi become one of Islamic legitimation to amendment of Act number 1 year 1974 on marriage in relation to the minimum age to marry from 16 for women and 19 for men to 19 years old for both. The fatwa on sexual violence also become the Islamic legitimation for the draft of law on eliminating sexual violence for Indonesian parliaments and also for National Commission of on Women. And I think the important impact also is that the approach of women's hakiki or substantive justice also has been integrated into the module of training for marital officers. So I'm the part of the team of the module and facilitator. And until now, there are thousands of marital officer has been trained by this model. And also this approach has been integrated to the concept of maslaha family belong to Nahdlatul Ulama, or the largest Indonesian Muslim organization. And the other impact is also this approach has been integrated into the strategic planning of Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection to eliminate FGM and gender-based violence and dangerous practices to women among Indonesian interreligion societies, Rosanna. Those are some impact of the approach to Qur'an through the women's experiences, the direct and indirect impact.
No, that was, thank you so much, Dr. Nur. That was really amazing sharing. I mean, I'm very, very happy that, you know, this is what the Indonesians are experiencing. And I can tell you, us Malaysians are looking at you and we're just feeling very jealous because you're making all these strides, not only in terms of how the Quran is being read and interpreted from within the people of the traditions. You know, the ulama perempuan who also comprise of men. And at the same time, you're also impacting in terms of not only laws and policies, but also on the communities on the ground and the trainings that you have mentioned. You know, that is just astounding. And really, I mean, congratulations. And, you know, we really take our hats off to you for, you know, such an amazing work. And I also want to commend you as well. I mean, all of this that you've mentioned is in relation to the Congress Ulama Perempuan Indonesia, which was launched in 2017. And for the benefit of the audiences, I was there along with my other fellow activists and colleagues from Sisters in Islam to witness this. It was such an amazing event, looking at you know, a sea of women who are all, you know, very, very strong in their convictions and had no hesitation in terms of calling for equality between men and women, and also, you know, looking at how they have concretely worked on, you know, issuing the fatwas on 3 very, very important and key strategic issues. And I also have to add that, you know, earlier on I said Dr. Nur was also very, being very modest about mentioning all these, you know, 4-figure numbers of audiences that she has reached out to. But, you know, I've been there, I've been following her work. I've been participating in some of the sessions, you know, like her coming over to Indonesia, to Malaysia, us going to Indonesia to see how, you know, they're working on the ground. And, you know, Dr. Nur speaks to, you know, small groups of people. But of course, over the during the time of the pandemic, that, you know, opportunity has, you know, it's a challenge for her to do her work. And it was just amazing looking at how she had crafted this whole module on a learning forum on gender justice for women in Islam. And, you know, from participation of maybe 10 to 15 to 20, you know, I'm witnessing the growth. You know, she's doing all these forums almost daily. She's sometimes, you know, online 3 times a day on these forums. And the people who are following her, they're not just women, you know, it's also men listening in, and her spending time, you know, in the forum for about 3 hours explaining what we've just gone through in the past, I don't know, 45 minutes, and her explaining it for, you know, 3 hours. So there is a large following, and I really, you know, congratulate you, Dr. Nur, for your dedication and your commitment and your stamina as well. That was really wonderful to witness you making this change on the ground. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And yeah, I mean, you know, it's really something to see, and definitely totally in awe of the work that you are doing. And so now let us turn to our discussion for this evening, Dr. Nur Jihan. Her work is also equally exciting as well. And I hope that, you know, Dr. Nur Jihan, why don't you tell us, you know, the context that you're working in, as well as, you know, what are some of the issues that you've taken on, and the approaches that you've taken on as well, because they are also entirely groundbreaking as well. The floor is yours, Dr. Nur Jihan.
Okay, thank you so much, Rosanna and Dr. Nur. What a wonderful presentation. There's so much to learn from you. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll briefly talk about BMMA, Bharatiya Muslim Mahila Andolan. And given what Dr. Noor has just shared, what are the things that we've managed to do at the ground with Muslim women here in India? So starting with Bharatiya Muslim Mahila Andolan, or Indian Muslim Women's Movement, is a national autonomous Muslim women's movement. We have more than 100,000 members across the country. We are a very grassroots organization with very, very ordinary women who are part of the movement. And when we started this, the objective behind starting a Muslim women's movement was that we as a community really lag behind on all parameters: social, economic, educational. Our standards of living, our educational status, our economic status is really poor, and we felt that as Muslim women we need to take leadership of the community and do activities, programs, so that we are able to contribute to the development of the community. So other than working on education, livelihood, health, security, these are some of the issues on which we work in. We've right from the beginning focused on demanding a comprehensive codification of Muslim family law. And that's because we are a minority within the country. But if you look at our figures, we are second in line to the Indonesian population. So we're not really a minority in that sense. And we are very diverse. We have all kinds of different sects and subsects and all kinds of diverse population within the Muslim community. And we felt that as Muslim women, we need to take up the issue of law reform, simply because it's been, when we started, it was almost 60 years of independence, and we didn't have a codified law. So while the Hindu majority had their family law codified, we have a very small minority of the Parsi community. Even they have their law codified. The Christians have their law codified. And we being the largest minority, because of political reasons, the partition and all of those historical reasons, we didn't have a codified law. And that led to a lot of discriminatory practices, which were never ever challenged by the by community, by which I mean the men of the community. They were in fact supported by the clerics and the patriarchal religious groups, and they gave all kinds of false reasons to justify those practices. And we felt that if we as Muslim women do not take up this issue, nobody else will. So, because we are a grassroots organization, we were approached by a lot of women who face the issues of triple divorce, of polygamy, of underage marriages, of all kinds of practices which were justified in the name of religion. And we felt that we need to read the religious text ourselves, read the Quran ourselves, so that we are able to see what is there in this book for us. And once we did that, we realized that how we were misguided, misinformed about our rights, and that's what led us to take up this issue. And we spent about 8 years making a draft law, a comprehensive draft law, which talks about the age of marriage, meher, polygamy, all issues which come within the personal law ambit are covered by our draft law. And we are hoping that we'll have one government sometime in future who will take up this draft law, and pass it in the parliament, and we will have a codified law for ourselves. But right now we've managed to get a legislation against triple divorce, which happened in 2019. And we have a public interest litigation pending in the Supreme Court of our country against polygamy and nikah halala. So we are hoping that we get a good judgment from the Supreme Court. So the whole idea of focusing on Muslim family law reform was that if Muslim women are suffering, if they are being oppressed, if they are misinformed, if the larger community is misinformed, then it is the responsibility of women herself to take the lead and demand reforms within the law. So what do we believe in? We believe in the values of equality, justice, democracy, freedom. I mean, these are values which are not just enshrined in the Quran, but are also part of the Constitution of India. And we look at ourselves as not just Muslim women, which we've been told all along that you're a Muslim woman and that's the first and the last of your identity. But we also believe that we are also citizens of this country. And all that is there for us as a citizen applies to us. So all the wonderful values within the Constitution, all those wonderful articles of our Constitution are equally relevant and applicable to us as they are applicable to the Muslim men or any other citizen of the country. So that really gave us a lot of strength in our fight. We are also not apologetic about being Muslims. So we as opposed to the feminist movement that we had in our country earlier or even now, we believe that we need to look at the religious framework and take whatever that it gives us so that we strengthen ourselves. So while we look at the Quran for guidance and solidarity and support from the text, we also look upon the Constitution of the country to support us. We also look upon the CEDAW and all other international documents, because Muslim women is also a global citizen and she is entitled to all of those rights that are there. So these were the values or the framework that we followed. And our strategy has been to reach out to Muslim women, organize them into groups, give them a lot of training, build up their capacities. And all along, reading the Quran, understanding what is there in terms of the personal law specifically, and reaching out to Muslim women with that information and with that knowledge. And that gave us a lot of strength. Coming to the issue of Muslim marriage and the context of our webinar today, what is it that we did in terms of looking at the institution of marriage from a Quranic perspective? So one was to look at the Quran itself, and Dr. Nur mentioned about all those Quranic verses. We looked at all of them, and we turned them into small booklets in local languages so that we are able to use them in our training programs, and women can keep looking at it, as and when she wants to know what's there in the Quran for her. So a lot of training material on Quranic rights, which are there for women. We also drafted a law, as I said earlier. It took us 8 years to draft that law. And we started drafting in 2007, and we had multiple consultations with Muslim women across the country. And this draft law that we prepared, what does it say about marriage? As I said earlier, based on the Constitution of the country and the Quran. So this draft law gives a lot of importance to the consent, a very express, unambiguous consent of the girl. The second important aspect of this draft law is the meher amount. So we came up with this formula that whenever a marriage is being fixed, the girl should get at least minimum his annual income as the meher amount. So because that will take care of his income capacities. At the same time, it's substantive enough for her to give the kind of security that is meant, the meher is meant for that. So that is the second thing. The third thing which we incorporated was the age of marriage. So the Muslim girl has to be 18. She has to complete the age of 18. And only after that can she marry. And for the boy, it is 21. Now, this also aligns itself to the law of the land, where 18 and 21 is the age of marriage. And the fourth and important thing which we incorporated in our draft law was the fact that if this law gets passed by the government in future, polygamy will not be allowed. I mean, based on what Dr. Nur also shared, the Quranic verses on polygamy. We based it absolutely on those Quranic verses and said that monogamy is the ideal in the Quran, and our draft law must reflect that ideal. So these are the four important things that we incorporated in our draft law. The second thing which we did apart from drafting was setting up the Women's Sharia Court, Aurton ki Sharia Adalat, as we call them. So we have 4 in the country right now, and all of them are headed by Muslim women, and we get a lot of cases of Muslim women. That actually becomes the base through which we understand how Muslim law is getting implemented in our country. And that also becomes the base through which we reach out to Muslim women with the educational tools that we have developed. So that is the second thing that we've done. The third thing which we did based on our draft law was, as I said, filing the PIL in the Supreme Court against the practice of triple divorce. polygamy and nikah halala. And for some strange reason, which only the Supreme Court knows, it picked up only the issue of triple divorce, and we have a legislation against it. The PIL against polygamy and halala is still pending. So this is a third important thing that we did to address the inequalities within Muslim marriage. The other thing which we did all along was to come up with our own nikah nama. Because as I said earlier, if we don't do it, nobody else will. So work on our nikah namas began way back in 2003-04 when BMMA was not formally launched. And the first thing that we did is we tore up the nikah nama, which was prepared by the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, which thinks that they are representatives of the community. And it justified a lot of these practices which we were against. So the first thing that we did is we don't accept this, and we tore it in our press conference. The other thing which we did is, as I said, if we don't do it, nobody else will. So let's make our own nikah nama. We not just made the nikah nama, but we the first set of 10 women came forward in Mumbai, and they solemnized their marriages on this nikah nama. We had another mass marriage happening in Gujarat based on BMMA's nikah nama, because we kept working on the nikah nama. So when BMMA was formed, the BMMA's nikah nama was used by our Gujarat community leader to solemnize marriage. So all along our effort has been to not just understand and learn and gain knowledge, but also implement the things that we've learned. So and the next thing, I don't know, the fourth or the fifth one is we started our own organization called Darul Ulum and Isma. And through this, we initiated the first training program for women qazis. And so again, drafting our own law, drafting our own nikah nama, getting marriages registered on it, setting up our own organization, and initiating this training program for women. So today we have about 20 women across the country who are trained as qazis. Here I would like to share that when we got this idea to help women become qazis, we were very sure that we are not going to approach any established or unestablished male religious groups. No ulema, no alims, no scholars, no lawyers. We don't want anybody. We are capable enough. We can read the Quran. We know what are our rights, and we know the lived reality. That's my favorite word. We know what the women are going through at the grassroots, and keeping those experiences in mind, keeping what the Constitution has guaranteed, keeping what the Quran has guaranteed, we started this organization. We prepared our own training module. We prepared our own syllabus. We got our own state leaders of BMMA to participate in this program. And it went on for a year. And so we did it like formally, with exams and written test papers and oral exams and all that kind of a thing, so that we are equipped totally and completely. So role plays and doing different kinds of things so that we are able to understand how this is going to be implemented. So if you're going to become a qazi tomorrow, what are you going to exactly do so that the marriage is an equal marriage? And so that is what we did. And then the question arose about certification. Who is going to authenticate this training process? Who's going to sign on these certificates? There was no point in reaching out to the male religious groups, and the state anyway has been absent. The state doesn't care. So we took it upon ourselves to certify ourselves. So we gave out certificates which were signed by us, and it was me and Zakia who are co-founders. So my certificate was signed by Zakia and vice versa, and we signed all other certificates. So because that's how it is with the male qazis. Not that our system for the male qazi is very thorough. Nobody knows what happens. Nobody has a common syllabus. Nobody knows who certifies whom. Okay, so because it is so open for men, why should we worry so much about processes and procedures for ourselves? We are here to authorize ourselves. We know enough Quran and enough Islamic law to do that. So that is what we did. And lastly and briefly, how do we solemnize a marriage? So that is part of our training program as well. So we get the girl and the boy to give us an application. So the bride, so the would-be bride and groom have to give us an application. We screen the application. We ensure by looking at their documents, their birth certificates, that they are 18 and 21 and they are not underage. We ensure that they are the consent part. So the girl is really agreeing to this marriage. We also get an affidavit or a written note from the groom saying that this is his first marriage, because there's no way we can really check as to whether he's already married or not. So we take an oath from him, like we have a legal document which says that, no, I so and so, I'm not already married and this is my first marriage. So in case we discover that he's already married, he is lied on oath and that becomes a crime. We also ensure that the girl and the boy meet each other before marriage, they talk to each other. Since marriage in India is also a family affair, which of course we don't agree to, but then we also would ensure that the families are there and they understand that there are certain laws like against dowry, or there are certain laws which they need to be aware of, and they should not land up doing anything illegal. So this is our process which we have trained our women Qazis into. And there's one couple in Kolkata who came forward and they solemnized their marriage through our trained Qazis. It's just one nikah so far, but we are very proud of it, and we hope that many more couples will come forward. We are ready. The community needs to be ready and come forward. So we've tried to bring about structural change within the community, that ensuring that we are not just demanding, but we are also implementing. So we are not people who just keep demanding, give us this, give us that. But because then by doing that with religious groups, you're giving them the credibility which they don't deserve. So we do it ourselves. We create those structures, whether it's Darul Uloom and Niswa or Sharia Adalat, where which are women-centric and which have a feminist perspective. And to end, I would say we don't want to be on that table. No, we want to create our own table, and then we will decide whether we want any men to come over there and chat with us. This is our space and our decision and our activities and our way to reach out to Muslim women. And for us, the state is important, because we are a citizen. It is the state who is responsible for ensuring that we get our legal rights. And even for the registration of the Qazis, we are now looking at as to how do we register ourselves with the state, whether it's with the Women's Commission or the Law Commission or any other state body, so that we are recognized by the state. I hope I have been able to cover all that.
Dr. Nur Jahan, I mean, it's like, you're saying all of this so calmly, like it's just another day, just another presentation, but you've no idea how mind-blowing it is to hear all these things that you are doing. It's insane. It's just, I've got tears coming out of my eyes, because the way that you're just very, very clear in terms of these are the changes that needs to be done. You're taking it, you're not pussyfooting about the authorities, the men, and to a certain extent, I think what I'm curious about, I'm literally having tears because I'm jealous, but no, really, hats off, all respect to you and everyone at BMMA. But I'm also curious as to how the society is responding to this. People on the ground is responding to this, and knowing that they have this choice, that either they can go to the conventional, traditional male bodies, and then here, a group of women who are making sure that, Qazis being trained. We have a, syllabus and all of this. And I mean, are you promoting those differences, publicly, that, you're a solid, knowledgeable body to be reckoned with?
Yeah, it has not been easy. Frankly, we keep talking about it in whichever forum is available, or with the women that who come to us at our centers. So we do keep talking about the fact that we can solemnize a marriage. So people think, but they don't really come back, because it's the men of the groom side who are really reluctant to get into this arrangement. They have questions about registration and certification and all of that, and then they are really not convinced. They will never bother to find out whether the male qazi is registered or not, where is he trained from, where is his certificate. Nobody asks. But when we say we are a qazi, everything, all possible questions are thrown at us. So that's the challenge. The other thing is, we've been women and the men have been very comfortable coming to us for getting their divorces done. So our qazis have been able to do that, at least. So whether it is khula or a mubara, mutual consent divorce, a couple of us have been able to do that as well. Nikah, this one nikah that we've managed to do. So we are hoping that the community gets ready and willing to recognize. That is why the registration and other things that I spoke about is necessary, so that we get at least state recognition.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all the best, and praying that, all goes well in whatever that needs to be done to get this recognized. So thank you so much for that mind-blowing, and you're just so calm about it. I'm like exploding in my brain here, So we have some time for, I'm just checking with our colleague Sarah. We have some time for some Q&A with Dr. Nur Rofiah and Dr. Nur Jehan. Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to pull out the questions. And okay. So this is a question for Dr. Nur. Okay.
Nur, Rosanna.
Dr. Nur Rofiah, Dr. Nur Rofiah. Yes, both of you are Dr. Nur. Yes, Dr. Nur Rofiah. Yes. So, so this question: can you please explain further what you understand by the concept of maslaha and how it's feeding into your methodology of reading the Quran?
Okay. Yes, this is a very important question, because maslaha is the heart, the central of Islamic knowledge system. And maslaha has been defined from the perspective of men, and using men as the standard of Islamic maslaha for both men and women. In this situation, we will have the pattern of fatwa on women from the perspective of men. You can ask any question. For example, can women ride bicycle? Or even, can women be a president? Any question, the pattern of answer is, if the action is absolutely give fitna to men, then it is haram. If the action may cause fitna to men, then it is makruh. And if it is absolutely will not bring fitna to men, then it is mubah, it is allowed. This is the pattern of fatwa. You can ask anything about women, and the pattern of the fatwa is like this. When women become the producer of Islamic knowledge, then there is a big change of the concept of maslaha, something that is allowed, that is good according to Islam. KUPI, or the Indonesian Women Ulama Congress, has different opinion about fatwa and different perspective. You can ask anything about women, but the answer is, if it is good for women, it is good for men and also for women, then it is mubah, it is allowed. If it is good for men, but it is bad for women, then it is not allowed. Even when it is danger, it is good, like, like child marriage. Boys and men will never have pregnancy, baby delivery, and nifas and breastfeeding. But women or girls will have that kind of experiences. Marriage, child marriage, is bad, even dangerous to girls, even when it is not bad or dangerous for boys, then still the child marriage is not maslaha according to Islam. This is if the action is the mutual action between men and women, then the action should be good for both men and women together. If it is unmutual action, for example, khitan, yeah, we know that the what you call it, penis and vagina has different structure, form, and system inside, and the function also different between both penis and vagina. We need vagina for it, not only for pee, but also for blood, menstruation blood, and the nifas blood, and even for baby delivery. So the khitan is good and very healthy for men, but it is dangerous for women. Then the Islamic perspective of khitan should be different between men and women. Men can go with the khitan because it is good for them, but if because khitan is bad and dangerous for women, we need to prevent women from khitan. They need the complete system, the complete vagina, to do their reproductive function. So I think in the very different of the concept of maslaha between the conventional one and the maslaha from the women's substantive justice is that maslaha should be maslaha should be enjoyed also by women at the same time. I think that is the different concept between maslaha from the conventional and the new one. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Nur. So I'm going to ask the next question to Dr. Nur Jehan. And I think this is also, I think, in the back of my mind, you know, I'm also very curious about this. So the question is, what pushed you and your team of bold women to take it fully upon yourselves without the inclusion of particularly male scholars?
Yeah, it's not that we did not really speak to them during the process of drafting the law. We did speak to a lot of them. But we also realized that the best of them did not agree to polygamy being completely banned. I mean, really right. Scholarly, I actually learned a lot from them. and learned so much about the Quranic perspective, a lot of learning. But when it came to implementing or getting a law in place or even filing a PIL, or a lot of them really backed out, and they would say, no, let's make it conditional, no, let's make polygamy conditional, no, make it so difficult that no man would be ever able to actually take on another wife. But our point was that we've already waited 70 years and we don't have a legislation. Now we make it conditional and wait for another 100 years. So it becomes completely banned. Like after 100 years, how long are we going to wait? We just have three small legislations. Our entire family law is open to interpretation by different groups across the country. There's no comprehensive legislation, as I said. There are laws which are meant for the entire country. For example, there's a CRP, a Criminal Procedure Code 494, which makes polygamy illegal for everyone in the country. But because we are covered by the Sharia Application Act, this is not applicable to us. So now how long are we going to be waiting for these laws of the land to become applicable to us? We have a Prevention of Child Marriage Act, which says 18 and 21 as the age of marriage. But there's a general understanding, and there's a Supreme Court judgment which says that it is not applicable to Muslim women and that she can marry before the age of 18. So why these discriminatory and different standards for one set of citizens and something else for another set of citizens? And when we are justifying these practices, when you're saying that, look, Quran is not talking about child marriage, Quran is supporting monogamy, Quran is not talking about divorce in one sitting. We've been crying hoarse over this, giving Quranic verses, doing all these meetings with at one point of time, we even sat with the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, trying to negotiate and talk. But even till this triple talaq legislation was passed, the board continued to keep their stand that it is sinful but valid. Triple talaq is sinful but valid. So now we can't wait for them to improve. Okay, and the best of male scholars have really not been with us on specifically the issue of polygamy. And felt let's take the best from everyone and go ahead independently, so that we are unencumbered and we don't get bogged down by the patriarchal understandings which some of them have.
Thank you, Dr. Nur Jahan. I'm going to move now to a third question that is applicable to both of you in terms, and this has to do with really how do we organize, what advice do you have for women activists who want to engage with religion in advocating for rights of Muslim women? How do they start doing so? What kinds of initiatives should they undertake to begin linking their feminist activism with religion? So maybe Dr. Nur Jahan, do you want to go first to respond to this?
I think the first thing that all of us need to do is go back to all these wonderful scholars that we have, because honestly, they've come up with such groundbreaking interpretations and even translations of the Quran that it's unbelievable that some years back we didn't have this. So I think going back to what Dr. Noor has written, or Ziba, or Dr. Amina, a lot of the Musawah group, we just need to keep reading them and listening to them, and that itself gives us a lot of strength. So that knowledge activism, as we say, or gaining the fresh perspective, the feminist perspective of looking at the Quran is extremely crucial. We cannot move ahead without doing that. And the other important thing is, if you are an activist and you're not based in the community, then better start doing that immediately. We need to be stationed where women are. So our center, our offices, or whatever that we call them, it needs to be in a place where women can easily access it. They can just walk in and cry, and she can tell us what is going on in her life. That space, a safe space, is very, very important. And the third important thing is, of course, taking this knowledge and not just keeping it to ourselves or sharing it in forums which are not accessible to very ordinary women. We need to reach out into the communities, not just with women, but also with young people. We are doing a lot of that in the last 1 year. We've reached out to very young men I won't even say men, they're all 10-year, 12-year-old, 14-year-old boys.
Amazing.
Important to talk to them, because the elder they are, the more damaged they are. They don't listen to us. But when they are small, they will listen and they will understand what the Quran has to say. They should know what the constitution of the country is. They should know the verses which Dr. Noor mentioned. Then I'm sure they have never been told about. They go to the majlis, they go to the masjid every time, but I'm sure these verses have never been spoken to them. So it's important that we reach out to young Muslim men and talk about these issues.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Dr. Nurjahan. Dr. Nur Rofiah, what about you? What can you share with us in terms of how women can organize and get themselves in terms of engaging feminism with religion?
I think this is the common problem of engaging to the religion and also the state policies and the social wisdom or whatever, is the fact that men never feel the pain of the woman's bodily experiences and the pain of being treated unjust just because of being woman. And people still think that talking about menstruation is taboo. Talking about the pain during pregnancy is taboo. And then men doesn't experience, but they are dominating the decision-making positions in family, in society, in the state, and in religions. So they don't experience the pain, but they are dominating the strategic position. Actually, it could be understood that they don't know, then they don't think the pain exists, because they think that the pain doesn't exist, then they will not take it into consideration, you know. So I think we need, as women activists in engaging religion or state or whatever, is to speak up the women experiences, both bodily and also social. So this experience, this pain, become reference for people to identify the maslaha of Islam and the justice of state, the wisdom of society, and etc. So we need to tell men our women's experiences so that they take them into consideration and stop of saying that a woman experiences are taboo. We need to make this experience as the common knowledge of people so that they can take them into consideration. And I think this is our power, because women experiences are valid to be taken as consideration, because the valid knowledge must be based on the realities, and women experiences, women's lived realities are valid to be taken into consideration. And it will only happen if women speak up. We may not understand the Islamic texts, but we as women can say, can make sure the interpretation of Al-Quran, the interpretation of Hadith, the interpretation of Islam in general are just or unjust to women. We can tell them that polygamy is unjust because based on our lived realities, this is what happened to families. So we need to talk about this, and including the khitan, for example. There is a different impact between khitan of men and khitan of women, because we have different system, reproductive system, we have different function of vagina, we need the complete vagina to do our reproductive function. When even when it is a complete, the system is complete, still painful. It is still painful. You can imagine if we cut the system, then it will not work in the perfect way. So we need to talk. We need to speak up about this, about our women's experiences, and make sure that men understand this, that men know this, and then they can take them into consideration, including in understanding Islam.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Nur. So I think we're going to take this opportunity to thank both our presenters for tonight. You know, both of you have been really, really amazing, and in your presentation, in your delivery, in the knowledge and experience that you've shared with us. And I think we're taking so much back from this session, you know, to think about, and really, I think the other thing that you're also, you know, coming across to us through the screen is the amazing courage that both of you have in terms of doing the work that you're doing. I mean, it's groundbreaking. It goes against, you know, the, you know, accepted norms in relation to, you know, dealing with Islam. And I think what you have all concluded in relation to, you know, I'm just repeating here that the fact that, you know, women's experiences are valid, women's perspective and in terms of their bodily experiences and social experiences really needs to be spoken about more. And we need to actually reach out to men and make them understand. And the earlier we reach out to them, the better. We definitely need to immerse ourselves in all this wonderful knowledge that is being created and experiences that is being shared by the people around us, the activists whom we're working with. And I think definitely to echo in the words of Musawah, that, you know, if change needs to be done, it is necessary to be done, it is possible to be done. And definitely both of these women have shown us the way. So thank you so much for spending your time with us, and hope to see you all soon, physically. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Over to you now, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Rosanna, for this brilliant, smooth, and engaging moderation. And now we will launch a quick survey. My colleague Suri will launch that now. If you can just please stay on and answer these two short questions. It's very important for us. It allows us to better understand your experience and also take that into account for the future webinars. And while you're responding to the survey, I just want to thank again Dr. Nur Rofiah, Dr. Nur Jehan, Rosanna, for this extremely captivating conversation. Dr. Nur, really the methodology that you're proposing, which centers women's experiences when looking at the Quran, is directly responding to the needs and challenges on the ground. And what Nur Jehan has, you know, shared really audacious, inspiring work with BMMA has proved that. And like you said, Nur Jehan, we know our lived realities. So I think it's really important to shed light on this empirical aspect of tafsir, and it's really empowering for us Muslim women on the ground. For the participants, I just want to precise that Nur's paper and all of the authors contributing to our webinars will be featured in Musawah's book that we hope to publish in the next year, inshallah. So keep update yourself by checking our website. And I also want to thank the audience for your constructive, your valuable questions. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to take all of them. So please don't hesitate to follow up via email for any further questions or requests. And if you enjoyed this webinar, there will be a couple more coming up in the next weeks. We hope you will be able to join us, inshallah. And finally, I would like to thank the team that is supporting us in organizing these webinars in Musawah, and in particular today, Zulaiha, Hishama, and Suri. And again, if you have any follow-up questions, you can see on the screen the emails and our website. Thank you again.